Hey, how's it going, everybody? So this is kind of a new, interesting topic that I wanted to talk about. Been really thinking about the politics of the United States, also the messages that are being pushed all around, and there's lots and lots of information out there. So, just wanted to kind of go through some of the things that I thought about as far as a distraction and a Trojan horse. There's many examples of how distraction applies to each of our lives, whether it's on a micro level as an individual or a macro level as a family, citizens of a city, state, and nation. Many examples throughout history show the tactic or the art of distraction, and many of the defining moments in our lives can be determined if we give in to distractions or not. On a personal level, distractions looks more like setting a goal and getting diverted. We may often be engaged in a moment with a friend, a family member, and we're not present but distracted by our phones, etc. This level of distraction, however damaging it may be personally, is not usually on a macro level, and it doesn't really affect the rest of society. The level of distraction that I feel is the most dangerous is the level of distraction of thoughts and ideas from political parties and leaders in our societies. By controlling our thoughts or outlining certain words, speeches, and vocabulary, we start to head down a slippery slope to complete loss of freedom. Let's be honest, life, no matter where you live, is challenging. Sometimes it just outright sucks completely. Sometimes a level of anxiety, depression, difficulty, and challenges just can take one's desire for life away. The challenge is recognizing that nothing in this world grows or comes about without resistance. If one takes a few minutes to observe anything in nature, you'll soon see that everything has to have resistance to grow strong and fulfill its creation. I'll be honest, I'm just like every other human on earth, and sometimes I want it easy. I don't want to work or struggle for a goal, a life, etc. Sometimes it seems easier to just be idle and let others do the work. Sometimes I blame my mental health, the weather, the status of my relationships, etc. But ultimately, my ability to delay gratification, stay the course, and decipher the distraction is my choice. I get to determine what I will give my energy and my attention to. The very first form of distraction, that we have in written history after the fall of Adam and Eve is the story of Cain and Abel. For those of you who may not be familiar with this story, I'll give you a brief overview. Cain and Abel were brothers whose parents were Adam and Eve. God had given instructions on how to offer sacrifice to him. Abel did it the correct way. Cain cut corners and God accepted Abel's sacrifice, but not Cain's. And instead of Cain correcting his behavior, he decided to allow his anger to permeate. As his anger permeated, Lucifer, or Satan, took advantage of the opportunity. He visited Cain, deceived him, and told him to kill Abel. Cain killed Abel, and ultimately, as all secret works get brought to light, Cain was found out by God. God cursed him because of it. Ever since then, many men and women have used the art of distraction for political gain, to cause wars, to bring another under subjugation, and ultimately divide and conquer. Right now in the world, especially in America, we're currently in a time where there's so many voices and so many institutions, thoughts, ideas, and people pulling for our attention and our support. We must learn to decipher through the mists of darkness that can easily entrap us. In the Book of Mormon, there's a story of a prophet named Lehi. Lehi has a vision of the tree of life, which represents the love of God. He sees an iron rod that represents the word of God that leads to the tree of life. He sees multiple people clinging to the iron rod and moving towards the tree of life. All around these people, there's a mist of darkness. This mist of darkness represents the temptations or distractions of Satan. He also sees a building he describes as a great and spacious building, full of people laughing and mocking those who are moving towards the tree of life, and even those who arrived and partook in the tree of life, the fruit. This building represents the pride of the world and the people who would mock God. Many people are lost in this vision through the distractions of Satan, or the mists of darkness. Today's world has so many distractions, but I want to focus on the political distractions that are becoming a major part of society here in the United States and in many places abroad. Being a U.S. citizen, I will only speak about what I see and experience within the USA. The founding of the USA and its Constitution and amendments were led by God himself, in my opinion. Nowhere else in the world at that time in history, and never before or after, could a group of people establish a document that would create ultimate freedom for all people. Also, to date, to my knowledge, there has not been a society that has established that where people were more important than the government and the leaders of the government. In particularly, the freedoms that were afforded of the freedom of speech, peaceful assembly, the freedom of religion, and the ability to petition your government for the grievances done to you, and most importantly, the right to bear arms. There's a reason these are the first fundamental principles within the amendments. There's a reason because these come about because the founders were oppressed in countries like Great Britain, France, and here in the 13 colonies by Great Britain. These men were fed up with many of their home nation's fallacies. There arose both an opportunity and a need, inspired by God to create a country that could bring about fundamental, inalienable rights to all people. I briefly just want to touch on a big factual point in history of almost every major nation that has ever been on the earth. That is slavery. Any research on the history of slavery in the world will see that nations conquered other nations, tribes conquered other tribes, and people were sold into slavery or used as slaves. I personally abhor slavery of every kind. The founding fathers, many of them, did not want slavery or indentured servitude to be a part of the United States. Ultimately, after much debate among the 13 original colonies, the issue of slavery needed to be set aside for a later date to be settled. If it was not set aside at that time, there most likely would not have been what we know as the United States. Because half of the states were slave states, they would not agree to the northern states and become a country to fight against Britain if that issue wasn't set aside for a later date. And unfortunately, it took from July 4th, 1776 to December 18th, 1865 to abolish slavery. And on this date, when the 13th Amendment was ratified, over 100,000 slaves from Kentucky to Delaware were immediately free. And the Civil War is ultimately what it took to initiate the end of slavery in the United States. And to quote from the website battlefields.org, the human cost of civil war was beyond anybody's expectation. The young nation experienced bloodshed of a magnitude that has not been equaled since by any other American conflict. In the Civil War, there were 620,000 men who lost their lives in that war to abolish slavery. The next closest number of casualties that we've ever had in the United States is World War II, where a little over 405,000 Americans lost their lives. Today, because of the many men and women who have protested, died, and fought for freedom, it does not matter the color of your skin, your family heritage, or where you come from. In America, you have the ability to become whatever you desire. We see this evident from the many people who migrate to America and become very successful and well-educated. Distraction is a great tool for those who desire to control thoughts and agendas. For me, I believe we as Americans need to figure our shit out. We need to stop allowing Trojan horses of socialism and communism to creep in and take our rights away. America is the last remaining great symbol of freedom, true freedom in the world. Only in America do you have all the freedoms afforded to men and women on the earth. You have the right, whether it's popular or not, to think and speak freely without the worry of your government or those who disagree to take that right away. In America, you have true religious freedom. You can worship God, Satan, a rock, the dirt, or whatever you decide, and the government cannot impose a national religion or attack or censor you for your religious beliefs. Then there is the right to bear arms. This is the only country where every citizen who has not committed a felony and is of age can legally purchase and own a firearm for sport, to protest, not to protest, but to protect oneself, family, and property from others, and to fight our own government. One of my favorite quotes is from Lord Acton, And he says, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men, even when they exercise influence and not authority. Still, more when you superadd the tendency of the certainty of corruption by authority. Despotic powers is always accompanied by corruption of morality. Authority that does not exist for liberty is not authority but force. Everybody likes to get as much power as circumstances allow, and nobody will vote for a self-denying ordinance. Absolute power demoralizes. Think about that for a minute. Right now, we live in probably one of the best countries to live in, where not one group of people or one political party or anybody has absolute power. What a blessing that was for our founding fathers to set up a country like that. And the way a person or group of people begins to obtain absolute power is to start by controlling the information that's being sent out to the public and being taught to the younger generations. A little study of Hitler, he did this right before the Holocaust. He took over the information being aggrandized throughout the country, particularly in the younger generations who are more susceptible to overpromises and naive to the reality of the distraction technique. Once there is someone or something to blame for a group of people's failures, adding fuel to that fire becomes so easy. We must stop the attack on the family and on the Constitution of the United States. There are enemies, foreign and domestic, unfortunately, that desire the United States to fail and crumble. I believe with prayer, spreading correct information, and with God's help, ultimately our Constitution will stand the test of time and we will remain free. One person at a time, one message at a time, and we can save our children from socialism and communism. We must accept truth over feelings and start teaching our children to be critical thinkers. Bring debate and different thinking back into our schools and protect our children at all costs from the slippery slope to communism. Slowly giving up one's right to the government by becoming reliant on the government for everything. And that's basically what socialism is. It's a slippery slope to no freedom. So I encourage everybody listening to this. I'm going to try to just talk each week about something in the Constitution that I feel is very valuable. Truth is important, and part of the Constitution is one of the most correct documents we have on earth. It's tested so much time, and it's obviously nothing is perfect that's man-made. However, it's as close as that we can get to a perfect government, and we must protect our children for the future of our country and these principles and values that our founding fathers set up in the 1700s for us. I hope everybody has an amazing day. If you like the video, obviously go ahead and share it. And again, these are just my opinions. I'm not an expert on anything. This is just my own thoughts. So I hope everybody is gentle in the comments. Have a great day.